titled Enhancing Pulse Production. As you heard in the inaugural session, the key issue for discussion was how to enhance the pulse production in India. The kind of progress which have been seen since 2016 till date is tremendous, and it shows the strength of Indian agriculture and efforts of Indian farmers who, given the right environment of production marketing, they can do wonders. The chair of the session is Dr. Ramesh Chan. As I introduced him in the first session, sir is member Niti Aayog, looking after the agriculture policy, and the address which we heard in the inaugural session was full of knowledge and quite exciting for Indian agriculture and pulses in particular. The second guest for the session, we have Dr. B.B. Singh. He is ex-ADG ICAR. Dr. Singh is a renowned scientist who has worked extensively on pulse. He has been involved in developing innovative crops varieties and worked for advancement of genetics and breeding of pulse crops since last 34 years. Mr. Singh has developed 14 unique varieties of different pulse crops and has released many research papers. For this panel, we have Dr. Ivan M. Osno. He is a scientist from North Dakota University. He has contributed to a number of publications, mostly focused on plant breeding. He has served as scientific advisor to breeding programs in Guatemala, China, Rwanda, Australia, and Colombia, among others. Welcome, sir. We have Amit. His company works on the technology upgradation for monitoring the pulse, the vegetative growth, etc. So I invite him to join this panel. I hand over the session to the chair for further deliberation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. We have reassembled after exciting inaugural session. This is the first technical session, though there is some time overrun, but we will see to it that lunch is not delayed too much. So, friend, we have three speakers in this session, and we have two distinguished scientists who have spent long period in research on pulses. Dr. B.V. Singh, he was a principal scientist in Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and my former colleague, and then he was also research administrator and research leader as a assistant director general of crop sciences in Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So then we have a expert from private sector also. So we have both science perspective as well as private sector perspective. My request to each of the speakers that if they can complete their speech or their address in about 10-12 minutes, then we will have some time for question answer with the interaction with the participants. So first I invite Dr. B.V. Singh to make his presentation on enhancing pulse production, and I understand his focus will be India.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. It is my privilege to again attend this meeting and listen a discussion, a very lovely discussion of Professor Ramesh Chan. We have opportunity to work in the past also with together. Friends, I will start my discussion with the history of Indian pulse production. Dr. Singh, Sunil Singh, Professor Ramesh Chand also mentioned that last 3-4 years the scenario has been changed. How this scenario has been changed and how pulses were being understood by the administrators and policy makers, and what helps to achieve this 4-5 million tons within 3 years, increase in within 3 years. Pulses are different than the other crop commodities. This I could able to narrate to policy makers. When I was ADG, the roadmap for increasing the self-sufficient, increasing the indigenous pulse production, as Professor Ramesh Chand said that we have a very little option to import the pulses. Even pulses we eat. The chickpea, the pigeon pea is only grown in India. We can't have much option to bring here. As he also very rightly mentioned that different geographical regions of the India takes different kind of pulses. So this is very complex situation here. And since 2-3 decades, we are able to increase only 2 to 3 million production of pulses till 2010. In 2000, that was also due to some initiative taken by the government. In 2006-07, under National Food Security Mission, Government of India has provided 15 crore rupees to enhance the breeder seed production of pulses, so that the new variety, new technology can reach to the farmers. That has helped to increase 2 to 3 million ton production, and again production has stuck to 14 to 15 million ton. And with a lot of efforts, we could not able to achieve the meet our demand, and import is increasing rapidly that time, and the availability of elsewhere in the global market is also not there, and the prices gone very high in the year 2015. In 2016, the government has again decided and asked the research and development and this development, both the departments they invited, Prime Minister Office invited. That time I was the part of this. About more than 1 dozen discussions have been taken in Prime Minister Office, and our Secretary there and DG ICR, they have also invited the different kind of experts, marketing, processing, economists, and R&D people to take their advice how to go ahead with the proposal. And after 5-6 rounds, one day I spoke to the Principal Secretary and exactly told about what Dr. Ramesh Chand has mentioned. Price fluctuation is the major culprit for the very high price fluctuations. I have worked about 34 years only in pulses, and I have very closely watched that sometimes about 50 to 70% fall in price during the harvest season. Farmers are they are compelled to sell their produce at throwaway prices. That price fluctuation has not only affecting the blocking the technology spread, but the interest of the farmers are also lost by that. How the price fluctuation has blocked the technology spread? When we started the breeder seed production in the ICR system, State Agriculture National Research System, the production of 1 year, if it has gone, a particular commodity has gone high, here the seed system is mostly with the public sector companies, no private players in case of pulses production. What happened, the public sector company, they distributed that breeder seed to the farmers, and 2-3 examples I can quote. I myself had distributed about 100 quintals of mung bean seed through National Seed Corporation. Seed was grown into summer season, crop was very good. At that time, market price was rupees 120 in the year 2009-10. And farmers were not able to return those breeder seed, which was converted into certified seed to the National Seed Corporation. They have sold this directly to the market. So these complexity, when we narrated with the policymakers or funding agencies or politicians, then they understood and they told us, I told them only 3 factors are. You support the procurement as wheat and rice, at least stop the price fluctuation and the seed production. About 150 seed hubs we have proposed to open in the National Agriculture Research System, which is mainly responsible for the production of basic and breeder seed production. But in case of pulses, I told them, unless 25 to 30% seed is being produced by the National Research System and directly goes to the farmers in the schemes for a large scale demonstration, it is not possible to increase the production by the way the seed production is going on. Rice and wheat seed production is different than pulses. So that way, the 2 things were tackled and the production has increased within 2 years, reached to 24-25 million ton from 15 to 16 million tons. As rightly mentioned by Professor Ramesh Chand, this technology, yes, India is having the globally competitive technologies with a great network, about 4 All India Qualitative Research Project, a research institute under ICR, about 50 universities are working, agriculture universities are working on the pulses. But still, the kind of varietal improvement happened in case of cereals is not happened in case of pulses, not only in India but elsewhere in the country, because pulses are still having a wild traits. Complete domestication, these traits might have been lost during the time of domestication, I think. And we have explored lot of wild varieties only in few crops and got little bit success in case of mung bean and urd bean. We did very well in India and utilized those wild relatives to reduce the photothermoinsensitivity of these crops, at least 2. But pigeon pea is highly sensitive to photo period and temperature, very sensitive to date of planting, as Professor Ramesh Chandra was telling, very correctly he has pointed out that if crop sequence is there, then there is a tremendous scope for increasing pigeon pea production. But our plant type, our nature of the crop, it is so sensitive to date of planting. You can get a 6 feet tall plant when it is planted in month of July. The same variety, same seed, if you plant in late August and September, it will grow only 2 feet. So lot of fluctuation with the photo period and temperature. This vegetative growth and reproductive stage differs in case of almost all the pulses. So this is the major hurdle to break yield plateau, but we have suggested few uh, areas to work on this. And the major, in case of chickpea and pigeon pea, they share about 40% of Indian pulse production. They suffers with the kind of insect, very devastating insect, pod borer and pod fly. We don't have resistance in our germplasm. So there is a very little scope for breeding resistance through the conventional method. We had worked for long 20 years to develop the transgenics in case of pulses, but the policy does not allow to those technology to go into field. We do have some leads, we have some events under restricted lab conditions and field conditions. We have found some events, they are resistant to pod borer, but due to the policy and the this kind of things, we are not heading to that kind of things. And another thing was that time was mentioned about the reducing the crop duration. For that, we have been very successful in case of chickpea and mung bean in 2 crops. We have been very successful as chickpea area. He has mentioned, chairman has already mentioned that Indo-Gangetic plains. Previously about 50% chickpea before green revolution, you can say up to 80 or 80s, the 40% chickpea used to grow in the Indo-Gangetic plains where plenty water and good soil is available. Now the whole area has been shifted to southern parts, arid region and central India. Why? It is again the nature of the crop, the sensitivity to environment. With a lot of efforts, we are not able to change the behavior of the plant. The self-surviving behavior of the plant we are not able to change. If there is a little rain, without water if grow chickpea, and if there is little rain, there is no podding and loss of about 80% crop. That's why farmers are very wise, they have stopped growing chickpea. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So these are some of the research strategy we are pursuing with the R&D institutions. And I again said that NAFED has a very big role in increasing the 4 to 5 million tons of production during last 3-4 years. If you stop procurement, again the production will reach to 15 to 14 million tons. That way, I say that support for pulses is important to increase the pulses production. We can reach up to 30 to 35 million ton with this technology and this kind of environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. So I now invite Dr. Juan Osorno. He is a pulse breeder at North Dakota State University and work on common beans.
Can you hear me well? Thank you. I'm honored to be here, for the first time in India. This is my first time in India, and I'm really happy because, if you work in pulses and you haven't been in India, you haven't been in a pulse country, right? So this is great. In the same way, let me tell you where I come from, because the place where I work in the United States, it's also a prime pulse production area, okay? The state of North Dakota is the #1 pulse producer in the U.S. About 40% of the total U.S. production, especially for common beans, come from that state, right? And then when you add other neighbor states, and then we get also very strong in terms of peas and chickpeas and other pulses as well. So my goal here is not to come and preach to the converter and tell you all the great things about pulses. I think everybody here is aware of the value of pulses, and you're passionate about this, and that's the reason why you're here, right? I've been able to also see production. I've been very fortunate of seeing production in many places, right? So you see the highly technified pulse production that happens in the US and Canada and other countries. And then at the same time, you see some of the challenges, and they also have challenges, but you see even more challenges when you go to places like Africa or Central America or China, right? Or even here in India. The interesting thing is that many of those challenges are similar. No matter where you go, and you see those small farmers kind of having the same struggles, the similar struggles on all those places, right? And things are getting even more complicated because when we talk about pulses, we're not just talking about one species, right? As Dr. Singh was mentioning, we're talking about different animals almost, right? It's like different species, they behave differently. So the solutions we have for one crop don't necessarily are going to be easily translated into the next crop, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's part of the challenges. Everybody knows the issues with climate change, diseases, all these things all these factors, right, that are going to affect our production. I want everybody to kind of do a mental exercise here. And imagine a triangle, right? Just a regular triangle. For me, it's easier to remember things when I'm thinking about geometrical figures. At least it kind of sticks in my memory much better. So I want everybody to think about that triangle and put the word productivity in the middle, okay? And then in the corners of that triangle, think about the three most important factors that contribute to productivity in pulses, okay? And my triangle doesn't necessarily is going to be like yours, but let me share my idea of what those factors are, okay? So on one side, you're going to have the markets, and we're going to have plenty talk about markets later on here, right? So we're going to leave that to the experts. But then on the other side, I have what I call the inputs, right? And inputs means everything in the farm, right? You have fertilizers, you have your varieties, you have your equipment, you have your labor, anything that is going to be helping to increase that productivity, right? And then on the other side, you're going to have the environment. That's the place where you're going to grow. That's your farm, right? And that farm has a specific set of conditions that in some ways you're able to manipulate, but in some other ways you can't, right? That's what is given. The soil you have in your farm is the soil you have to deal with, right? The amount of water that you receive in your farm is what you have to deal with. And there are little things that you can do to tweak that reality, but not much. So in reality, when you think about productivity at the farm side, you're thinking more on the inputs, right? Is the input side. And in the case of my work, it's all on the side of new genetics and new variety. It's the impact that you can have with new varieties that it's pretty crucial. And that's probably one of the things that got me really interested in working in genetics and plant breeding, is because you see the direct impact of what a good variety can do in a farming operation and in the whole industry area, okay? There are cultural factors also there involved into all this paradigm, right? The infrastructure that we have in order to move and store all the production. Reliable seed systems are so important in our countries. Having good access to quality seed, it's so important in these days. From the little I've seen and the little I talk with many people here in this group, I'm really happy to see that everybody's kind of heading in the right direction. And by that I mean you are already a self-organized community. And that is a huge step in order to be successful in the future. You are a self-organized community working around pulses. And that is crucial, and that's what I've seen as successful examples in other countries. So I think that's a great thing that NAFED, and now in company of the GPC, this partnership, I think is going to be taking things really far. So I see these more as a beginning in my personal case, right? I'm open to be able to have discussions with all of you and talk about how we can collaborate, how can GPC can play a role increasing productivity, and kind of capitalize on whatever is being done already in the country. I mean, the country has been already done some interesting things, so how we continue that momentum, right? Need to go to the field, talk to the farmers, see what are the struggles. Those are the things that you don't learn, in a place like this. You have to go and touch the plants, get your boots muddy, I always tell my students, right? And that's the only way you can learn about the real struggles and the real issues. I think I'm going to leave it there for now, and we're going to probably come back if the audience have questions, all right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sorno. The third speaker for the session is Mr. Amit Mundawala. He is from private sector, Agri Bazaar. So they have a stall outside. Some of you might have seen the product which they are selling.
So good afternoon, everybody. So I am Amit Mundawala, Executive Director, Star Agri Bazaar Technology Limited. So just to introduce, so we are into the entire agri value chain, so supporting farmers starting from the sowing stage, so through technology, through AI and machine learning, so we can actually predict them to when to sow, what to sow, and then after harvesting, then so we are into warehousing, we are into financing the warehousing commodities, so that helps them to hold the commodities till the prices are viable for them to sell in the market. And then we have a NBFC also to support the financing need of the entire industry. And then so we have this AgriBazaar platform where it's a e-marketplace for commodities where the entire buying and selling happens actually in the market. So this tech-enabled online marketplace, so we are just trying to help world largest and rapidly growing agri economy, addressing challenges for diversify and unorganized structure integrated with last mile linkages. So we have the, just for the introduction part, we have the proven track record, more than 18,000 participants with 20 lakh ton of commodities have been traded with a value of more than 1 billion USD, which we have done on the platform. And here I just need to mention a special thanks to NAFED, where we have been partnered with NAFED for supplying that processed pulses to various army, paramilitary forces and the states schemes basically. So we have registered more than 300 plus millers for NAFED, and we are trying to help them for the back-end operations on that pulses scheme. Coming on the role of the technology, so currently we are having 25 million metric ton requirement of pulses in the country, and with a 5% growth rate, so what we are expecting by 2030, so it should be around 37 lakh million metric ton. So this quantity increase can be sorted out by increase in the area under cultivation plus increase in the area under production. So that can help us to reach the goal where we are today. And it is so already, so we are mentioning the past, in the last 3 years, so we have attained self-sufficiency, and this same track can be enhanced so that we can be ready for 2030 also. So here, say, technology can play a role for each and every area, each and every step, which is helping the entire value chain. Say the farmer, the way I told, key variety of pulses, which geography suits, which variety, and then the aggregation of good seeds, telling the farmers which seed to be used, and right now in the last 5 years we have enough database of soil health of the country, then the weather information. So through AI and ML, so we can aggregate all this information, and then gradually the farmers can be supported. So how they can use the entire data, and then with the precision, so what exactly the particular farmland through the satellite imagery and the remote sensing, so we can actually predict so what the actual need of that particular farm get, and then we can increase the yield of that particular farm. So then again, once the crop is harvested, so then again the major part is the post-harvest, where the farmer, if they get the better prices, so then again they are post-incentivized to increase the acreage. So the covering the market basically from these e-marketplaces, so farmers can get a ready buyer, the processors can directly connect it to the farmers, and then where we can get them good value of their produce. And if the markets are not stable, and if in future there is a outlook where they can hold the commodity, so they can store into warehouses, and then later on at the warehouse level only, so they can sell the commodity to the respective buyers. So implementing emerging technologies in pulses production, like crop diversification plans, the way I told, then the real-time crop health monitoring, technical intervention to assure yield, and the yield estimation at gram panchayat level, efficient procurement, then the traceability which is required basically. The more we are getting conscious about the food habits, so everybody wants to know from where the commodity is coming, from the food which we are eating, so we should be aware from which farmland, who has grown this commodity. So the traceability is very easily achievable through these tech platforms, where the entire commodity is being geotagged from the farm till it reaches to the packed food which you are eating. So implementing emerging technologies in pulses productions, bridging the gap between research institutions and farmer. So recently we are working with Syngenta Foundations, where we are trying to help them to create agri-entrepreneurs in the field. Like say, one of the farmer who wish to volunteer, and then we train them as like a agri-entrepreneur, so that he can actually assist all the farmers to bridge gap between the use of technology to educate the farmers, like say which sort of seeds, which sort of agri inputs they can use, and then eventually the entire handholding through the tech, through where they can educate the farmers ki what should be the common practices to grow until the commodity is grown, and then they can again handle them to educate them about the real market prices, and then about the guidance to where to sell and which is the right time to sell. Again, on the post-harvest model, the digitalizing trading mandis and empowering small holding Indian farmers to in their quest for better and transparent prices. So, the entire pre-harvest and post-harvest, if we integrate together, so the technology is the only medium which we can sync all the entire needs of the country. Thank you.
So thank you, Amit. Friend, we have 5-6 minutes before we conclude this session. If anybody want to ask any question to any of the three panelists, you are welcome. Yeah.
I'll try and speak loud. Thank you. I noticed in your presentation that you projected a 5% growth in pulse consumption or demand, I guess, from 2020 to 2030, right? And I believe that the rate of technical innovation in agricultural production has hovered around maximum of 3% over the last 20 years. Am I on somewhat close? So we have a gap there, right? And how do you see us filling that gap between technical innovation and demand in India? That's not even assuming an increase in consumption, which we all want to see, right?
So even the way Ramesh answer has also depicted that post-independence, so our consumption was slightly higher than the early 2000 levels. So that is the reason. So from 25, so we dropped up to like 11, and now I think we are sustaining around 22 per capita consumption in India. So growing further with the developing level of the country and the increased demand, so which we believe the ratio of increase will be 5%, I will.
If I can say something based on our work on demand scenario and projection toward next 10 or 15 years, you see, one is normative demand, that where we would like demand to reach based on a particular norm, particular level of protein, balanced diet, all those things. Second is the positive demand, that given your growth rate of population, given the growth rate in per capita, income, preference of people, like that. So we calculated based on this positive demand, and our population growth rate next 5-10 years is likely to go by 1.2% a year. India's population growth rate is decelerating, and decelerating at a fast rate. 25 years back, we were growing at 2%. Now it is only 1.3%, and next 10-15 years it will be 1.2%. So that is one source of growth. Second is that per capita demand. We expect that if our economy grows at say 6.2, 6.5% and population grows at 1.2%, so then per capita income will be growing at say 5% in next 10-15 years. Then what is the income elasticity of demand? Different studies shows different type of income elasticity of demand, but most of these studies, they show it in the range of 0.3 to 0.5. That if income increase by 1%, the pulses demand will increase between 0.3 to 0.5%. So if you take the middle point, it comes 0.4%, and then multiply that by per capita increase in per person income, so it comes about 2%. So if you add population growth rate and growth rate in demand for pulses based on growth rate in income and add the two, according to our calculation, it will be a little more than 3%, 3.2% to be precise. So that is the kind of growth we feel will be there on demand side. Of course, if India is able to meet it through its own production, fine. Otherwise, we have seen it in the past that if India gives this signal to the world that okay, trade is open, then we found that lot of pulses were coming from Canada, particularly yellow pea, and lot of technological breakthrough are becoming possible in the case of yellow pea. Among all the pulses, we find that that highest technological breakthrough seem to be happening in case of yellow pea. Second was Australia. It was willing to put more area under pulses and meet the demand for traditional pulses of India, not yellow pea, for chickpea, for lentil, and those kind of things. But India is also following a policy that we would like to promote self-sufficiency. So if our production, domestic production goes up, we have been increasing this tariff rate. So I think that we internally need to look at it, how much our R&D and price policy can give us, what kind of growth they can give us. And if that growth rate happen to be less than say 3%, then we have reasons to open up the trade in pulses, and we feel that then like edible oil, you will find, even in case of fruit, now a lot of our demand we are meeting through import, even though we are putting tariff, but still it is happening. So this is how we feel that if our domestic R&D is not able to give us growth rate of 3% or so, then we have to rely on imports.
Thank you. May I request now our Senior Director, Member of Parliament, Dr. Chandrapal Singh, Chairman CRIPCO, to present memento to the chair and the panelists. Sir, please. Dr. B.B. Singh. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.